With about $1,000 offered by the State Department of Transitional Assistance, very few funeral directors across Massachusetts are willing to bury the bodies of the poor or anonymous. Arranging a funeral on such a small budget can leave directors in the red. It could leave nursing home directors or police officers with nowhere to take the deceased, turning it into a potential public health issue. Noah Bombard of MassLive joined me to discuss the ongoing investigative series it has to explore this issue.
The issue of abandoned bodies is one that we had heard of for a couple of years now, which is, and just to back up a little bit, this is indigent people, folks who die and there's no one there to claim the body. And this happens pretty regularly across the state. And so we started looking into what happens in that case. And what we found was that there are only a handful of funeral homes, 3 about across the state, who are handling these cases, predominantly because there's a lack of funding to help bury people who don't have money to be buried or don't have any family. So we started looking into this and really unraveled a larger story of a problem across the state that police departments are dealing with on a regular basis that a lot of people don't even realize when they show up and someone's passed on and there's not a daughter, a son, a family member to take it, and they get on the phone and they start calling funeral homes trying to get somebody.
The police department does.
Right, the police department gets on the phone trying to call to find somebody who will take this body, and oftentimes it can take a long time. We had one case we profiled in Brockton where the police were standing there with the body for 9 hours trying to find someone to come take it, and most of the funeral homes answering the phone said, no thanks.
So you've got police looking at a public health issue in addition to, they've responded to this public safety need, the public health issue, but then once they do find one funeral home willing to take them, as is the case here in Worcester, the director Peter Steffen from Worcester's Graham, Putnam, and Mahoney Funeral Home is one of those 3 that you said were statewide that is even willing to take on this issue. So what are the challenges they're facing? Once the body is, a police department finds a place for the body to go, a funeral home, what are the challenges that funeral home is then facing?
So part of it is financial in that, so the state does reimburse these funeral homes up to $1,100 for a funeral. Now it costs a funeral home much more than that to bury a body. Just the plot itself can run $700 in the Worcester area, up to $1,000 out in Western Mass. So a lot of times they're kept sort of waiting to see whether or not there are other family members, because the state wants the funeral home to try to figure out if there's anyone else connected to this person who's passed on, and not for humanitarian reasons as much as to see if there's any money associated with those people.
Because what the state does, as your reporting said, the Department of Transitional Assistance will insist that a funeral can cost no more than $3,500, right?
Right.
And then they'll consider reimbursing up to $1,100. But the Department of Transitional Assistance, as you all reported at MassLive, actually looks at the billing cycle and will then deduct additional money from that. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah. So if there's a estranged daughter living in Florida, which actually was the case of one of these circumstances, who they figure out has $300 in her savings account. They will go to the funeral home in Worcester and say, well, we're going to deduct that from the $1,100, and good luck going to try to
so really
claim
the
that.
only money that these funeral homes can receive is $1,100, and then the state is already saying, but that's the most you're going to receive, and that's barely covering their costs, right? As Mr. Steffen explained to you all.
Right, and he's one of 3 who are stepping up to the plate and kind of taking it on the chin. A lot of times, sometimes they'll make a couple of bucks. A lot of times they lose money off of this. So they're really, it's almost become a humanitarian thing for them in that, somebody has to bury them. You can't just have them sitting there. And as our story found, when the Office of the State Medical Examiner's Office, before they had made some changes there, they had bodies that were sitting there for an average of 44 days waiting for a funeral home to bury them. And that was through the State Medical Examiner's Office, which is separate from the bodies that pass on that the medical examiner's office doesn't claim, and they only claim bodies where they, there might be some interest in
The police
determining the
department
cause
calls
of death.
and reports a suspicious death. The medical examiner may take that body on,
Right.
but there are others, as the reporting found, that will not
Sure.
even accept these bodies.
Like the Brockton case. I mean, that guy, he had a long medical history, so when they found him dead, it wasn't a surprise. It was like, okay, we pretty much have determined the cause. So the medical examiner's office would not take that body initially. And Peter Stefan from Worcester drives out to the Boston area, gets this, and waits for a month before the state medical examiner's office actually changes its mind and says, well, we do want that body. They bring it back, and then there was more time that had to pass before they finally put that person on the ground.
In West Roxbury, the gentleman ended up being buried, right?
Yes,
Who
right.
had no family there,
Right.
no connection to that community,
Right.
but there was a free burial plot there for him.
Yes, and that is another issue that we explore a little bit, and some of the stories that we're continuing to do will explore more, is that by law, towns are supposed to have set aside, you've heard like Potter's Field, like an area where the indigent and the poor can be buried. In many cases, that's not happening.
Why can't these people just be cremated?
So there's a law in effect right now that prevents that from happening. And part of that is the idea that there may be some folks out there, there are some folks out there whose religion may prevent cremation. There may be folks who have an objection to it within the family. So right now there's sort of like you just can't cremate them. What Peter Stefan and some of the other funeral home directors would like to do is they'd like to see legislation passed that would allow a waiting period, 30, 60 days or whatever, at which point they can then apply to the local board of health for a permit to cremate the body, which is a lot less expensive and doesn't take up cemetery space.
Yeah. And so, but this issue, as your reporting found, is not only impacting funeral directors, but the poor in general, because they too can apply to the Department of Transitional Assistance for some financial help, but there are challenges there too, right?
Yeah, there are. It's a very difficult process, and you also have to consider that most of the folks who are in this type of situation do not have the wherewithal and the resources to follow, state protocol to try to get to get money that they would have a right to. So
It's $1,100 again,
Yes.
to
Yes,
recap that.
$1,100, yeah.
And some statistics that I read in the MassLive reporting, it said there were about 4,500 funerals last year that the state paid out some form of assistance to poor people, and a total of $5,000 for those 4,500 funerals was paid out. So not even close to that $1,100 per funeral.
fraction. Yeah, and a lot of that is because the funeral home directors at least accuse the Department of Transitional Assistance of sort of nickel and diming them, doing those sorts of things where, the funeral technically went over the $3,500 because we found a family member who put an obituary in the paper, which cost a couple $100. So we're going to add that to the cost of the funeral, even though the funeral home had nothing to do with that in that particular case. Or they're looking at a relative that has, they've got, $2,000 in a savings account. And it's a sister or a brother or a daughter that lives in another state who has, for whatever reason, has no interest in this person anymore. They'll deduct that. So that leaves a lot of folks without that money, without that reimbursement.
Did the state explain to MassLive why it is they're doing this very careful math around this issue?
They didn't get into that. I mean, that's one of the areas I think we have yet to explore is, is it just a matter of extreme bookkeeping that they just want to make sure they're covering themselves, or if there's something else. I think the other issue is it's an issue that needs to be solved legislatively, and it hasn't.